Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that you literally own every single dollar, euro, yen, and rupee on Earth. All the cash in every wallet, every bank account, every corporate treasury, every government reserve. It's all yours. At first glance, it feels like the ultimate dream. You could buy anything you want. There would be no limit to what you could do. But here's the problem. Money only has value because people believe it does. It's not magical. It's a system of trust. Every economy in the world works on the assumption that the money we use can be exchanged for goods and services. But if one person controls all of it, that trust collapses instantly. Think about it. If you had every single dollar, there would be no money left for anyone else. And without money, nobody could buy or sell anything. Shops couldn't operate because customers wouldn't have money to pay for goods. Employees couldn't be paid, so they wouldn't work. Banks wouldn't be able to function. The entire economy would freeze almost immediately. This is where the agitation sets in. Let's break it down step by step. On day one, after you acquire all the money, you might try to spend it. Maybe you go to buy a car, but the dealer quickly realizes something. You're the only person with money. If they sell you the car, what will they do with the money they receive? They can't use it to pay their employees because no one else has money. They can't use it to restock cars from the manufacturer because the manufacturer also has no money. In other words, your money is worthless. There's a real-world example of how fragile money can be. In 1923, Germany's economy collapsed into hyperinflation. At its peak, prices doubled every 2 days. People would rush to buy bread before it went up in price by the afternoon. In one famous case, a man brought a wheelbarrow full of cash to a store. He went inside to ask about prices, and when he came back, someone had stolen the wheelbarrow but left the cash behind because the money was practically worthless. Now imagine this, but on a global scale. If you owned all the money in the world, people would stop using money altogether. They would start trading goods and services directly. That's called a barter economy. For example, a farmer might trade vegetables for medical care, or a carpenter might fix a roof in exchange for food. And here's the twist, you would be left out. Nobody would want your money because it wouldn't mean anything anymore. People would create new systems of trade that don't rely on the currency you control. They might invent a new form of money, something you don't own. In effect, the moment you take all the money, you destroy its value. This isn't just theoretical. It's already happened in situations where currencies collapsed. During the economic crisis in Zimbabwe in the late 2000s, the government printed so much money that a loaf of bread cost trillions of Zimbabwean dollars. People stopped using the currency and turned to US dollars, gold, or even physical goods as a way to trade. If you owned all the money, the world would move on from that currency immediately. And it gets worse. Governments would have to step in to keep basic services running. Without functioning economies, society would face massive disruptions. Hospitals wouldn't have funding, schools would shut down, and infrastructure like power plants and water treatment facilities would break down. In desperate situations, governments often seize assets for the good of the public. They could simply declare the money you own invalid. Overnight, the bills and bank accounts you hold could be made worthless by law. People would start using new government-issued currency, and you would be cut out of the system completely. That brings us to the solution, or at least a way forward. If you somehow ended up with all the money in the world, your best option would be to give it back. That might sound absurd, but it's the only way to restore trust in the system. You could redistribute the money to individuals, companies, and governments so that the economy could function again. But even that would create chaos. Imagine giving everyone an equal share. The total amount of money in the world is estimated at about 40 trillion US dollars in physical cash and bank deposits. There are roughly 8 billion people on Earth. If you divided the money equally, everyone would get about $5,000. That might seem like a lot, but once everyone has the same amount, prices for goods and services would skyrocket. Economies work because money is unevenly distributed, and people and businesses create value by working, investing, and producing goods. Simply handing out cash wouldn't solve the underlying problem. There's also the issue of inflation. When too much money floods into the system, the value of each unit drops. That's why printing money doesn't make a country rich. Economists have seen this happen many times. In Venezuela in 2018, Inflation reached over 65,000%. Prices changed daily, and people had to carry bags of cash just to buy groceries. Your situation would be even worse. So, is there any way you could actually benefit from having all the money? Probably not. The power of money comes from the fact that other people value it. If you control all of it, you break the system that gives it value in the first place. Here's a thought experiment. Instead of owning all the money, what if you owned all the resources? Owning all the farmland, factories, and technology might give you real power. But even then, you would need people to work those farms and operate those factories. You can't do it alone, and people won't work for money that's meaningless. The truth is, economies run on cooperation. The value of money isn't in the paper or the numbers on a screen. It's in the collective agreement that it can be exchanged for something useful. Take that away, and the money disappears as a concept. So what would happen if you literally had all the money in the world? You wouldn't be rich, you would be isolated. The world would adapt by creating new ways to trade, and your mountain of cash would become nothing more than piles of paper and digital records with no value. The lesson here is simple. Money only works when it's spread around. When people earn, spend, and invest, economies grow and society functions. Trying to hoard all the money breaks the system for everyone, including you. It's a strange paradox. Having all the money means having none of the power that money brings.